Administering questionnaires. Hi, I am Adil Oun and I am Assistant Manager Projects at Infrastructure Development Authority, Punjab, and I am an NIBOSH certified civil engineer with MS in Project Management. The aim of today's discussion is to introduce questionnaire administration, its types, and guidelines to design the questionnaire. The sequence which I'll be following is to introduce the topic first, then the types of questionnaires, followed by the advantages and disadvantages of different types of questionnaires, and in the last, we will be telling you about the guidelines for questionnaire design. Introduction. There are primarily three data collection methods: interviewing, observing people, and today's topic, that is administering the questionnaires. Questionnaires are a pre-formulated written set of questions to which respondents record their answers, usually within closely defined alternatives. And the process of asking these questions and recording the answers is administering questionnaires. Types of questionnaires. There are three types of questionnaires: personally administered questionnaires, mail questionnaires, and the latest type, that is electronic and online questionnaires. Here we are discussing them individually. Personally administered questionnaires are designed specifically to be completed by a respondent without intervention of the researchers collecting the data. They are usually a standalone questionnaire, though they can also be used in conjunction with the other data collection modalities. And if confined to a local area, they are a very good way of collecting data through personally administering the questionnaires. Mail questionnaires. As evident from the name, mail questionnaire is a self-administered questionnaire that is sent to respondents via the mail. This method of questionnaires has long been the backbone of business research, but with the arrival of the internet and the gadgets, mail questionnaires have become obsolete. Let's talk about electronic and online questionnaires. They are conducted via the internet, mostly due to their convenience and efficiency. And they are often used to get a deeper understanding of the consumer's opinions and preferences. We are moving towards the advantages and disadvantages of different types of questionnaires. Number 1. Personally administered questionnaires. They can establish rapport and motivate respondent. The doubts can be clarified on the spot. They are less expensive when administered to groups of respondents, and 100% response rate is ensured, whereas the anonymity of respondent is high. However, there are some disadvantages which include more time and effort, and explanations may introduce a bias. Mail questionnaires have also some advantages and disadvantages, where the anonymity is high and wide geographic regions can be reached. It can also be facilitated by the token gifts that can be enclosed to seek compliance of the respondents. The respondent can also take time to respond at their convenience. These questionnaires can also be administered electronically if desired. However, the disadvantages include that response rate is almost always low as 30%, or maybe lower than this. The researcher cannot clarify the questions easily, and most of the time it is observed that follow-up procedures for non-responses are necessary. Electronic and online questionnaires are easy to administer and they can reach globally. The best thing about them is that they are inexpensive. The delivery is very fast, and the respondents can answer at their convenience, and the process of answering is automatic. However, the computer literacy is must for responding to these questionnaires, and there are probability of high non-responses. And it is also observed that it is not always possible to generalize the findings. The respondent must be willing to complete the survey. However, people find invitations and email rude and offensive at times as well. In the last, we will be discussing about the guidelines for questionnaire design. There are primarily three principles for questionnaire design. The first is principles of wording. The second set of principles is of measurement. And the third, but not the least, is general getup of the questionnaire. Heading forward, we see 5 factors attributed to principles of wording. Number 1. Content and purpose of the questions, the language of the questionnaire, the type of questions, the sequencing, and the last is the classification data or personal information required from the respondent. Let us first discuss the content and purpose of the questions, which is one of the major factors of principles of wording. The questions should tap the dimensions and elements of the concept of the research. The purpose of each question should be carefully considered so that the variables are adequately measured and yet no superfluous questions are asked from the respondents. The second factor contributing to the principles of wording is language and wording of the question. The questionnaire should approximate the level of understanding of the respondents. If some questions are either not understood or misinterpreted differently by the respondents, this will definitely impact the analysis of the research and responses will thus be biased. The third factor is the type and form of questions. There are different types of questions which are contributing to the design of questionnaires. For example, open-ended versus closed-ended questions, positively and negatively worded questions, double-barreled questions, ambiguous questions, recall-dependent questions, leading questions, and the 2 other elements that contribute to the principles of wording are length of questions and social desirability. The fourth important factor is sequencing of questions. The questionnaire should be such that respondent is led from questions of a general nature to those that are more specific. It is also advisable that questions that are relatively easy to answer should be leading the questions that are progressively more difficult. The researcher should not place contiguously a positively worded and a negatively worded question tapping the same element or dimension of a concept. Let's talk about the last factor, that is classification data or personal information. The researcher should elicit such information such as age, educational level, marital status, and income of the respondent. Unless necessary, it is best not to ask the name of the respondent. However, questions that seek personal information should appear at the beginning or at the end of the questionnaire, and it is purely a matter of choice of the researcher. In surveys, it is strongly advised to gather certain demographic data such as age, sex, educational level, job level, department, and number of years in the organization, even if the theoretical framework does not necessitate or include these variables. The second principle in the design of questionnaire is principles of measurement. The principle of measurement requires that the wording of the questionnaire must be appropriate to minimize the bias. It must be ensured that the data collected are appropriate to test our hypothesis. The researchers are required to formulate appropriate scales depending on the type of the data that need to be obtained. And once the data are obtained, the goodness of the data should be assessed through different tests of validity and reliability. Last and the very important principle of design is the general getup of the questionnaire. Viewers, an attractive and neat questionnaire with appropriate introduction, instructions, and well-arrayed set of questions and response alternatives will make it easier for the respondents to answer them. However, a proper introduction must be stated that clearly discloses the identity of the researcher and conveys the purpose of the research that is absolutely necessary. The researchers are advised that information of a very private and personal nature, such as income, state of health, and so on, should be asked at the end of the questionnaire rather than the beginning, if and only if it is justified to ask. That is all about questionnaire administration for today. You are welcome to ask any questions or comment on the video. Thank you.